Hi, I'm Katrina, and this is Boldly Challenging Ableism. I'm your host, Katrina Simons. I'm the Community Program Specialist at the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota. This program explores various topics that impact people with disabilities in our community. Each episode addresses a different aspect of our society within the context of ableism. Ableism is the prejudice that stems from the belief or belief system that assumes someone is less capable or less worthy because of a real or perceived difference in ability or function. On this program, we hope to answer some questions you may have been afraid to ask, or maybe some you didn't even know you had. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Boldly. Thanks for joining us today. Our guest today is Linda Wolford, who I've known tangentially since I was in high school, so a long time because I'm 38. And then recently we became closer because she listened to an episode in season 1, which we're going to talk about today. So Linda's going to do a two-parter with us today, and we're going to get into why it's a two-parter in a little bit. Linda, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Katrina. I've admired you for a long time, and so.
Not as long as I've admired you. You've been great.
That's because I'm old. I'll start by saying that I'm just old.
No. All right. Can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. My name is Linda Wolford. I use she, her pronouns, and I currently work as the Government Relations Director of the Minnesota Council on Disability. That's my current position. Would you like me to give background?
A little bit, yeah. Because I don't think we haven't talked about what the Minnesota Council on Disability is. So if you don't mind.
Sure. The Minnesota Council on Disability has existed for we just celebrated our 50th year anniversary. And actually, surprisingly enough, right after graduate school, my first job, and I'm going to now date myself so you do know how old I am. Okay. My first job out of graduate school would have been in 1988. I was the information and referral specialist for was then called the Minnesota State Council on Disability, which is now just the Minnesota Council on Disability.
I know, so we can't use our cool MSCOT anymore.
Right.
I knew it.
So, yeah, it's okay. So we exist as an independent, nonpartisan agency that is to better the lives of people with disabilities in Minnesota. So we have a pretty broad, mission, but what we do and what we're really busy doing right now is developing our legislative policy agenda that we will push forward that tries to look at all aspects of disability, not focusing on one, but rather on all. And we're doing that this year with the guidance of a legislative priority survey that we've been using as we do a lot of outreach in the community.
Yeah.
So we're at the Minnesota State Fair. I think we have the biggest booth in the education building.
Yeah. That's where we caught up this summer with you and Katie McDermott. We were all there.
Yes, that's right.
You got to go see Megan Trainor, and I was jelly.
Yes, we have a big presence there. But we've been doing county fairs. We've been doing a lot of conferences. In fact, my colleagues today, and I was supposed to be there, but I got to go on your show instead, which I'd much rather be here, was for the county commissioners of the state of Minnesota. So we have booths at a lot of places. So one of the things that I've only been in this position for 1 year is that I wanted to refine our government, so that our legislative survey that we've been using because it was very broad. So we changed it to a much more, it's a longer survey, but it really collects a lot more information about what the needs of Minnesotans with disabilities are. And we have over 800 responses that we got from every county of the state. At least there's a person from every county, 87 counties in Minnesota that completed this survey. As well as, I would say over 50% were from the Twin Cities region, but not surprising since our population also is way over half is in the Twin Cities metro area. But we did go to Greater Minnesota with a number of events. And of course, people from all over Minnesota come to the state fair. So, so with this, we've developed a legislative agenda that this Wednesday, actually, our MCD council members, who are from every region of the state, the governor appoints our council members, in which we have, I believe 9 new members. They will vote on our legislative agenda this Wednesday. So to finalize that. But I will say that a lot of the results focused on the health and human services work, some on transportation, particularly in Greater Minnesota, affordable health care. So those are some of the top issues that we're seeing from people. So there's a lot of consistency, but also there was a room on the survey for people to just write if it was, that they wanted to tell a story or they wanted to write about something that wasn't on there. But, that is what we're using to try to listen to our people and try to develop things that really represent people with disabilities. So that's what we're about at MCD. And we're a small staff. I think we're hiring one more person and we'll be at like 12 people. So it's a very small staff that does a lot. We put out a monthly newsletter that goes to over 80,000, I think it's people. Yeah, it goes to a lot of people.
Large conglomerate.
There we are.
I got it.
You got it. You
on a Monday.
Yes. So, and prior to this job, I was at the Department of Human Services for about 8 years. Mm-hmm. I served in the last year as the Deputy Director of the Disability Services Division. And I've also worked for 20 years, non-consecutive, at the University of Minnesota, a manager in the Disability Resource Center. I think that's maybe when I first perhaps met you, because we were both at the University of Minnesota at the same time.
Yeah.
And you were on campus and I was on campus. And then I was also at Courage Center for a brief time, but most of my time is spent in state services, working on behalf of people with disabilities, or at the University of Minnesota, also in the area of disability and equity, diversity and equity programs. So that's and I also have been on a lot of nonprofit boards. And so I've been an active member of the community. Not as active lately because, like I said, I'm getting old and trying to look at what's next ahead and maybe dropping down a bit in my work life. Because I will say I turned 63 this year. So I'm one of the seniors.
I thought you were going to maybe turn 50 this year.
Oh, I wish.
That's when I would have guessed your age.
Nope, I know. People say that, but no, I've been around a long time, so I consider myself one of the disability elders. So,
but you are, though. In a good way. Like, not because you're old, but because you're wise.
No, because I'm old.
You're like an owl, but you're not an owl. Like, you're like a wise sage, You and John, but now John passed.
Right. Yes, John Goodsmith. Are you doing a tribute? I hope we're doing a tribute story.
Well, we hope so, but since it just happened.
Yes.
Details unclear so far.
Yeah. So sorry.
And then John Cheetah's still with us, though, so that's good.
Yes.
I think actually when I first met you, I think you might have been working at Courage Center at the time.
Yes.
I was like 15.
Wow.
So it was a long time ago, and I'm 38 now, so it was a long time ago. And you and John Cheetah and I think her name was Sherry, but I forgot. She was she worked there too, and her husband was the head of the sports at Courage Center.
Oh, Sharon Van Winkle, perhaps.
Yeah, Sharon Van Winkle. You guys came to Camp Courage.
Oh, yeah.
And you just talked about what it would be like to have a career or a life of our choosing as adults. And I thought that was so cool because I knew that I was supposed to work because my parents had told me that, but I didn't know what it would look like because I didn't know anybody with significant disabilities that had a job.
Yes.
And so
that's good because I remember giving that talk and I no idea that that's where I first met you. So
yeah. Well, I
really
think it was more like you were the Taylor Swift and I was the Swift. Like, it was a big deal. It was very.
I'm the Cher and you're the Taylor Swift. But that's
no, you were definitely my Taylor Swift at the time, and that's when I first met you. And then I think I met you again later. Yeah, when we both worked at the U, because I was at them in Peds for a while before I was here.
Yeah.
And they used to be in the McNamara Center way back when, and so was the Center for Students with Disabilities.
That's right. I worked there for 9 years as a manager of the student access area.
Yeah.
But I was born, and I've always had I have a disability that's a congenital. I was diagnosed at age 2 with spinal muscular atrophy.
Okay, cool.
Which is leave me unable to. I don't know if you can see on my camera, but I use a power wheelchair for mobility. I can't move my arms very much at all. And so I use like Dragon Naturally Speaking software to dictate for my job, to write things because I can't use my hands to type. And so I have a very significant disability. I do use services. I'm a service recipient. But I grew up in southwestern Minnesota on a farm. And so very isolated with no programs, no services. My parents took care of me until I went to college at St. Cloud State University, where I did an undergrad, and I got my first job up there working for a woman with cerebral palsy who hired me. Yes, under a CETA youth program. When I was cool. 19, I think 19 or 20, and that's where my first job was. And then I just kind of continued from there at doing undergrad, and then I ended up getting a master's up in counseling psychology with a rehab emphasis, and taught at St. Cloud State their first class on disability rights, as well as teaching in the human relations department as an adjunct faculty.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So do you have a PhD?
No, only a master's.
Me either. I didn't even have a master's, so you got me beat.
That's never too late. Never too late, Katrina.
Well, I'm very happy now with how things are going. So I might just stay like this for a little bit.
Yes.
In that department, there's other areas that I need to improve, but they have to do with our country. But
yes.
But could you tell us a little bit about like your life and things that might be different from somebody who doesn't have a disability?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. I think that one of the biggest things I think about is the supports. I lost both my parents this last year, but they were in an assisted living facility, and my mom in memory care. So I kind of, grew up with them providing all my care. I've never been able to walk, so I've required assistance with all my activities of daily living, even when I was young. Even though I had more mobility, I still never walked. And so then my grandparents were my only babysitters. I never had a babysitter because of the physical requirements. So, so only family took care of me. And I was in a very remote area of the state where there weren't other people like me. My high school was not accessible. I went to school until I was in 9th grade at home, and I wasn't homeschooled like you would talk now. I had a tutor sent out 2 days a week for 2 hours.
So I think now we call that homebound, but it's not the same. And
there you go. Yeah, it's not a homeschool. So, which is different. So my parents weren't responsible for, it was people that the school district sent out, because my school was completely inaccessible. It still is. It has 3 floors. So when I did go to high school in 9th grade, because one person could come out and teach all the subjects, I was carried by my classmates up and down the stairs, 3 stairs all day long. And so, and I didn't go to the bathroom all day, and I didn't go to the bathroom all day when I first started working, for years before adult changing tables became a thing, an accommodation I could request. So, that's a difference. But now I live in my own home with the support of 24-hour PCA assistance. And I think that, some things that people don't have to experience is like just to get out of bed, to do anything. I'm on a BiPAP machine at night for breathing. And my disability is one that is progressive. So it has progressed from the time even when I met you, Katrina, obviously, to now. My medical needs are greater. So I never can just like usually take things for granted. I always have to think about how am I going to do something? How am I going to get from point A to point B? Do I have a PCA that drives or do they not drive? And also just to continue, like when I'm in the hospital, hospital staff don't typically know how to provide care for us, even though they learn to provide care not to people that have completely unable to do their ADLs. And so usually my PCAs stay with me and I have to pay them privately to do that.
Yeah.
Under the new CFSS program, that can change. So that's a good new thing.
And I just want to pause this for a second and say, for people that are not familiar, that there is so we talked about what PCA is last season, and PCAs are people that can come in and support people with disabilities to live an ordinary life. There is a rule where when you're in the hospital, you can't have your PCA, and that's what Linda is saying.
But they can't get paid. You can have one, but Medicaid, medical assistance in Minnesota will not pay for that.
Yeah, so that's why you have to pay them out of pocket. And I just wanted to review that with the audience because they might not be as aware.
Yeah. And and not everybody will be automatically get that. You would have to have that in your care plan, that's needed in the new CFSS proposed rules. So that's one nice thing that we've been pushing for a while. So other things is just like today, I can think about this, like snow removal. It might be, a pain for some people, but for me, it's a life like I got to figure out how am I going to get my driveway clean. And I have a really steep driveway up my house. And I live in Roseville, a suburb of the Twin Cities. I have great neighbors. We have a great neighborhood that, that we are tight knit, and that's good. People are very helpful of each other, but like making sure that I can get, the driveway that my PCs can get up my driveway into the garage. All these things are things that people take for granted, and also finding PCAs. Oh my goodness. That's another almost full-time job. Or somebody like just yesterday, I had a PCA come down with COVID. So day before I have to fill her shift because she came down with COVID. So it's never ending. Like when I work, I also have a second job of finding staff and training a new staff person this last weekend. So it's kind of like a lot of our lives are not our own. It's really just about taking care of yourself. And so there's a lot to our lives that a lot of people don't see. And that's what we call that kind of privilege of non-disabled privilege. You don't have to think about things like that in your life, but we do, right? So
and I kind of think of it like, I don't know if you think of it this way, and I think I'm kind of cheating. Like, I think when I was maybe in high school or junior high, somebody told me this analogy, and I just still use it because it was a good one. But it's kind of like an iceberg. Like, you can only see the top of me, but I have all this stuff, and it's less than you, right? Because I don't have the same medical needs that you do. But I do have, PCAs and those requirements as well. And so people can't see what we're dealing with before we even get to work, I feel.
Absolutely. That's right.
Yeah.
You just see the tip and you think, oh, you're out there and it's so easy. But it's like, no, to get this to happen is not an easy process.
And I don't know if you agree with me or if you feel the same, but I find the debate on inspiration porn to be kind of frustrating. Because they say, like, don't praise me for getting out of bed. But, like, some people work really hard to get out of bed.
Right.
You
or it's hard to find somebody to get you out of bed.
Right. And so.
Shower, groom you.
Yeah.
I will send you a video that Apple just released this great video.
Yeah. No, I saw it. The song.
Right?
Yeah. The song.
Yeah, the song. Isn't it great?
I love it. And I've always loved Apple's ads. And I feel kind of bad saying that because they obviously have a lot of money, so they can make really incredible ads, but they're still incredible ads.
Yes.
Also,
they really
full disclosure, I am an Apple person. I like iPads and iPhones.
Yep, that's what I have too. Only at work we use.
But you don't have to be. You know what I mean? Like if you're not, I don't know. It's still okay, but I don't know. I'm just on the Apple train. Sorry, everybody.
Yep. Only with dictation, they don't make a good program. So now I have to do a PC and go with Microsoft. So 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 there's good and bad in both.
Yeah. Okay, so I had a question I was going to ask you, and then I got distracted because of the Apple ad, but I think I can get us back on track. Okay, so I was wondering, so you have been living and working in the Twin Cities for it's like 40 years now. Would you say that? About 40, 38?
Yeah, it's about 40. You're exactly right. So I moved to the Twin Cities in 1988.
Okay, so what got you sort of started in your advocacy work that you do outside of work? Because like the work that you did to get enhanced rate, which we're not going to talk about in this, we're going to talk about it a little bit, but not this episode.
Yep.
Probably next week's episode.
Yes.
What got you started in doing that kind of work?
Because I learned when I was studying human relations, the connectedness of all oppression, right? Of people that all are considered, quote, the other, right? That are othered in society. Basically, anybody who's not straight or hetero, who's not female, like male. So the world was designed not with us in mind, but also people of color, people who are part of the LGBTQ community, and people with even speech accents that might not be apparent that they're an immigrant. All of these issues are connected in terms of we live in a society that wasn't designed for us, and that we face not just challenges, but outright discrimination in both systemic and personal levels. So when I, in college, started to study this stuff, and then I was a person with a disability and started reading national publications and realized I wasn't alone in what I was experiencing, but that this was part of what's called oppression, a systemic way of society designs systemically and otherwise to keep people down, right? And so through no fault of our own, based on some aspect of our identity that makes us, quote, different. And so that's how I started to get involved with both at the university. We started the first disabled student cultural center in the world, and that was in 1992. At the University of Minnesota when I worked there first time.
When I was in high school, I went there and I was like, I want to go to school here because I want to come here and play games with other people that have disabilities.
Yes.
And I wish I would have pushed back. My parents were like, please go to the University of Wisconsin Whitewater because it's smaller.
Yes.
We don't want you to get like swept up, and you know, we're concerned about the snow or whatever, you know, that you won't be able to get to class. But I wish I would have pushed back. But I met my best friend at University of Wisconsin Whitewater, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. So, you know, pros and cons.
Well, and I went to St. Cloud State, same reason, smaller.
Yeah.
I worked at the university, but I never regretted not going there because of what you're describing. It is true. It's smaller, even though there might be better services and opportunities to connect with other disabled students in such a large campus. People still felt alone, and some people were afraid to get engaged in like the cultural center. So we'd have a few group leaders that are disability, with all types of disabilities. And I also think, I like when we were just talking about our friend who just passed, John Goodsmith, I met him at Camp Courage, which was a part of Courage Center. And that he was actually a counselor there. He was a staff person. He was one of the people when I was a teenager that I looked up to, because he was one of the first people I saw working at camp and not another camper like us. But what I loved about that experience was my first exposure to people with all kinds of disabilities, people who were blind, deaf, had cystic fibrosis, all these different kinds, developmental disabilities. So that's what got me really motivated to go, I really want to fight for the rights of everybody, because if we don't, what I've learned about oppression is, and like what's happening today with some of the, pointing out people who are different. And right now, we know the immigrant population in Minnesota, particularly Somali folks, are getting targeted because of their identities. And, and when one group, if we fight amongst ourselves, we just do our oppressors' work for us. So we really have to try to work on making sure that we are making sure no one's left behind, that everybody's, getting treated with dignity, with respect, and humane. And I think that's what I'm concerned about right now. And this is the worst time in my life of 63 years that I have ever seen it, in divisiveness and how we're not respectful of people. And that's concerning to me, because that's why I got involved in things, was to make the world better, to change the world, and make life better for people with disabilities of color in particular, who are often left out, but also just in general. And we're doing work with other marginalized groups really helped me learn so much about them, about me, and about how we're all better together. And my favorite quote is by the late Paul Wellstone: "We all do better when we all do better."
Yep. Well, we got to wrap this episode up, but I'm so excited to hear you tell the story of enhanced rate and the next episode. So we'll see you in just a little bit, Linda. And thanks so much for coming.
Okay. Thank you so much. Time flew by. Thank you, Katrina.
Boldly Challenging Ableism is a co-production of AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota. For more information, please visit ici.umn.edu.